Hello, I'm Paul Trainer, and this is the Glasgow podcast. You join us in a new episode where we're going to be talking about some of our favourite people and places in the city. I'm joined by Jennifer Reoch, who's here. I met Jennifer when she was a television presenter at STV. We had some fun times at doing live television and talking about lots of things in Glasgow. Um, Let's bring us up to date, Jennifer. What have you been doing recently? I know you've had a very busy summer and you're working on lots of different projects. What's happening in your life at the moment?
Oh, hello. Yeah, no, great to chat to you. First of all, those times at STV with Live at Five, Paul, were the dream. I had such a great time. And in terms of meeting great people in Glasgow and across Scotland, it was probably the absolute perfect job for it. You were one of those stars that, again, like almost 10 years later from when we all started out doing that, we're still talking, we're still connected, we're still pals. So that kind of speaks like it's testament, I suppose,
Yeah.
to how great that was. But yeah, finished up obviously the STV journey, I suppose, at the end of 2018, I think that was. Went on to do some work at Heart Radio, was on the drive time show there with Des Clark for 4 years, and then went on and Des and I moved on to doing Heart Breakfast as well. So did 2 years on the breakfast show at Heart Radio, which was a lot of fun, absolute nonsense. Like dressing up as a giant tea cake, getting Jason Donovan to dress up as a giant tea cake, like the most Glasgow thing ever. Um, it was full of fun, and that was great. But I'm not a natural morning person, if I'm really honest. So nice to get that sort of stint in the bag. And then since then, this summer it's been busy. I've been lucky. I've been doing some filming with the One Show for BBC. I was filming at the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo again. So that's been, I think it's the fourth year I've been back doing that, which is always amazing. Like it's one of those things that I think whether you like pipes and drums or not, you're going to love it. You're going to be blown away by the scale of it. So that's always a really exciting one to do. Just a few weeks ago, I was on Crime Watch Live as well. So Crime Watch has been around in some form for over 40 years now. Quite an iconic show, quite an iconic brand. So I got to be involved presenting that. I always like to very much say presenting because it's important that you like work out I wasn't a guest on that show. And yeah, I also am now looking forward to doing some more work. Sunday Morning Live is the name of the show that I'm going to be working on. It's BBC One again. And that's kind of, as the name suggests, Sunday morning, and it's live. Super creative names. We're good at that in the telly industry, keeping it pretty simple. But yeah, that'll be a nice one to look forward to. So that's in the next wee while. So been keeping myself busy and been on a lot of trains because Crime Watch was Cardiff, so I from Glasgow to Cardiff and back again quite a lot. But it's a good complaint to have.
So, the live television and live radio aspect of it, it can be quite intense, but it's a lot of fun. And you've done event work and lots of other kind of you record packages, whatever. But are you drawn to that adrenaline fueled, anything can happen arena where it's just you and a guest who might say anything, or a person like me who might say anything?
And that's excitement, Paul. You never know what's going to happen. And I mean, that's the joy of life. No, I actually am quite drawn to it. I think that's where,
Yeah.
obviously, when I started, and I think to an extent, I think that's what makes it really watchable. Or, from in my opinion, like that's why you tune into live TV because you never really know what's going to happen. And if something goes a wee bit wrong, I mean, you're hoping for no disasters, but I think if something goes slightly off kilter, then you're kind of with the audience living that in real time, and that's what kind of makes it very watchable. So
Yeah.
I'm actually quite drawn to live TV. I do think there's a good energy about it, and there's a wee bit of excitement, and there's also the sort of benefit of when you go in, you just got to make it work. It's got to go. It's got to do it. It's got to happen, and then that's you done. Once it's done, it's done. You don't have to sit and agonize and tweak and try to make it work. It's just whatever's happened has happened, and you move on, which is quite exciting.
I suppose another strand to what you've done over the years as a broadcaster is you get the opportunity a lot of times to tell real local stories, to talk to people about things that are really personal to them and to translate that to an audience. Has that been a deliberate thing? Is it something that you enjoy?
Yeah, I'm nosy, Paul. I like asking questions. That's really what I've learned. I love getting just a wee snapshot of someone else's life, because I think that's really quite fascinating. I'm always interested, like, what are other people doing? And maybe I should focus on myself a bit more, but generally I just want to know what everyone else is up to. So that has been, I suppose, I don't think it started as a conscious thing, but I think as I've sort of developed through my career, I realised I do like talking to people. I like finding out what they've got to say, what's important to them. I find it quite inspiring, especially when you find someone that's got a real passion or a real interest. You're like, oh, wow, I hadn't ever thought about it in that way. So that's what I think is it's a real sort of positive side to what I get to do. And it has varied so much over the years. I mean, when we were back at STV, we got to interview some of the celebrities at the time as well. I mean, I was excited. I got to interview like Mel C, Sporty Spice. So you told like 12-year-old Jennifer she was sitting beside Sporty Spice, she would have lost her mind. I did have to completely be unprofessional and be like, can I get a selfie? Because it had to be done. But like things like that. But then you also had like Jean and Paul from round the corner who started a campaign to make sure that everyone in their area had a really fun summer play date, and they were putting a big trampoline in their garden and they wanted to tell you about it. And the reason they were doing it was maybe fundraising for a great cause, or maybe just to bring the community together. Like those stories were just as important to me, and they still are. Like I was filming a piece just the other week, and it was about a community sauna in the south side of Glasgow. The Bowling Green area, it's a transformed horse box. It's now a sauna. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that was there. So it challenges you and what you know and how you perceive people. And I think that learning is constant. And that's what's really interesting about it.
So if we were getting nosy and starting to have a look at, through some of your kind of favourite people and places in Glasgow,
Yes.
I thought I'd actually start at the beginning. Can you tell me a bit about your early memories of Glasgow, or going into Glasgow, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I'm just sort of on the south side of Glasgow, and I remember going in. I think one memory, like really, really vivid, because I'd never been before, and I thought I was like so excited. And this almost is a cliche, because I reckon so many people will probably have this. It's going to the Barras Market when I was maybe like, oh, I don't know, maybe about 10 or 12 or something, with my dad, and having a wee rummage around. And again, I probably shouldn't say this too loudly, because it wasn't something that's technically legal, but the CDs, the stands where you could get all the albums. And I remember getting a Gwen Stefani album in one of those wee plastic pockets. And I remember getting, I think it was like a Jennifer Lopez album, and Blue, the band. And I just remember being so excited. I think it was like 3 for a tenner or something. And my dad was like, I'll get you these. These are your treat. And I was just like, I was buzzing. It was like the energy was so exciting. As I said, almost a sort of a Glasgow cliche, but I also think it's an experience that if you're in Glasgow, you probably have had at some point. And it was, I think the energy more than anything was exciting. I was like, when you're that young, you're like, what's going on? This is wild. It was amazing.
I took the kids down to the Barras at the weekend, and we had those hot donuts, Danny's hot donuts.
Oh,
I think I've been there for about 50 years, maybe longer.
glorious.
Yeah, that's a real taste of Glasgow right there. Like people do tend to gravitate to certain parts. Because I went to Strathclyde University, I still find myself Merchant City bound a lot of the time, although I'm getting to the age where I spend a lot of time in the West End. Did you find yourself growing up pretty rooted around the south side, in terms of like that was your neighborhood where you hung out with your pals and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I was like, I like went to school, like high school, like Thornley Bank, so Wood Farm High School I was at, and I was good pals with obviously like people within that area. So in terms of spending time growing up, like we went to like the south side. So I suppose technically East Renfrewshire, but like Rook and Glen Park and stuff like that. That's you sort of within that local area. But as you got older, obviously gravitated like a Saturday in town shopping was really great. Like me and my friend Fiona and used to go in, get the train into city centre. Again, you felt very grown up. You were like, oh, look at me walking around town. How cool am I? Like you'd go into like New Look and buy like, I don't know, a new top and just think it was the coolest thing ever. So I remember doing that when I was a lot younger. And then again, as I got older, I stayed in Glasgow for uni. I went to Glasgow uni, so I was sort of the West End, but I also stayed at home at uni. So I did, I just got the bus and the subway So I got a wee 38 up to the Bridge Street subway, and I remember there was a bus called the City Sprinter, which is no longer. The City Sprinter was absolutely wild. If anyone got the 38, they will know that you got there in about half the time, but you were taking risks. I'm not going to lie. It was hairy. It was brilliant though. I mean, generally there was no real risk to it, but it was definitely a wee bit more like a bin on wheels. It just kind of travelled about. It rattled. It was totally mad. I remember once one of the drivers must have bashed the wing mirror a wee bit in on like a sign or something. And when I got off, he just went, "Going to push that back out." And I was like, "Brilliant, brilliant. Yes, no problem. I'll get that out for you." So if you were running late, they were a good bus to get. And I came over to the West End just for uni. And now I'm back in the West End as well. So I'm a bit of a West End girl these days.
So was it a case of when you were a student, you'd have like maybe some weekends would be out with your pals from school on the south side, and then sometimes it'd be out in Byers Road and doing the student thing and stuff like that, dipping in and
Exactly.
out?
It was for me. It was a good balance actually because I got on really well with my mum and dad and my sister and my brother. So like staying at home wasn't I didn't feel that was a bad thing. I didn't feel like I lost any freedom. My mum and dad were quite happy for me to go out, and I wasn't. You won't be surprised to hear I wasn't that wild either. So some good nights out, some good late ones coming in, but they always knew I was reasonably sensible.
Yeah.
Occasional moments of wildness, but generally I was going to get home in one piece. So, yeah, it was good to be able to have your pals on the south side, but also like, well, obviously we went out into town with them as well. Like that was what you did. I think people probably go out a wee bit less now. I feel there's a lot of conversation about like younger people not going out to clubs and bars and pubs quite in the same way that maybe like our generation did. Like, I think we did go out like Friday, Saturday night, and then student nights would be like a Tuesday night in Cushion. So
Yeah.
you'd go out for a Tuesday night, and then you'd probably be in the Arches on a Wednesday because that was like also. And I wasn't a huge clubber, but even then, just sort of socializing, getting out and about, and doing those things was always really good fun. So, I think one of the great things about Glasgow is it is like it's a big city and it's got a big city feel, but it is very like commutable. You can get around it relatively easy and you can enjoy
Yeah.
the south side, the centre, and the West End all in one night if you wanted to. It's relatively straightforward, and they've all got a slightly distinct feel to them as well, which I quite like.
The thing that I enjoyed about the Arches was it was very welcoming to people who were into all kinds of different styles of music. You know,
Yeah.
like the strong house and techno strand there, and there was people there who were absolutely obsessed with the records and stuff. But there was people there who just wanted to meet up with their pals as well.
And that was neat. Yeah, I'm not cool enough to have a big sort of draw to anything musical, house music or anything like that. I was there for a good time and to have pals and have a dance and have a vodka Red Bull. The bad choices that you made as a uni student, things like
Right,
that. It was
so we've got Cushion, we've got the Arches. Give me some of your other studenty
oh,
favourites
I
back in the
did.
day.
I did end up in the Union a few times, the QMU, but also I ended up in the Strathclyde Union. I swear
Oh
there was like
yeah,
a 99p Tuesday,
yeah.
maybe,
It
which was
was
very,
a good
very
Tuesday.
dangerous.
8 floors of fun. It was the biggest students' union in Europe. It's one of the reasons many people actually went to Strathclyde, just because of the strength of the union itself, I
It
think.
was incredible. That was good fun. I think latterly Kokomo came around. That was quite a good one. I remember going to the unders though when I was genuinely obviously like what maybe 15, 16. I wasn't sort of trying out any of the older clubs too much. And was it like it was under the shack, I
Right.
think.
Oh yeah, so that'd be trash.
It was Trash. That was
Yeah.
it. I went to Trash when I was in the unders. O2, the O2 ABC, that was a good one as well with a big glitter ball. I'm
Yeah.
so sad that's
I mean
heartbreaking to
that
Wasps Pass. Heartbreaking that it's not
that
there anymore.
that big disco ball was one of the great landmarks of Glasgow. The fact it
It was
didn't survive
iconic.
is a sad thing. All right, let's move into the modern era.
Yes.
If if you had to kind of say your favorite neighborhood right now, like the one that you tend to spend your weekends or you meet up with your pals or you'd recommend to people, where are you? Where are you in Glasgow?
So I'm a big fan now of the West End. I do stay, like I stay in one of the old tenement buildings here. I've been here now for 8 or 9 years. So I think as a sort of as a hub, as a place to spend my time, it's probably here. Kind of around the Kelvin Bridge area is quite nice as
Yeah.
well, with like Gibson Street going into Kelvin Bridge Park, Kelvin Grove Park, even sorry, around the sort of Kelvin Bridge subway station up in there. Like even like Kelvin Way and Glasgow Uni, that kind of whole area. Just I think it's pretty to look at. You've got amazing food options. You've got good like coffee shops as well. I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I will take a cake and a nice juice or even a hot chocolate at this time of year. So I don't think you can really look past that. On Gibson Street, there's so many different restaurants as well, and it's pretty handy if you do want to nip into town as well. So if you want to change your mind, it's kind of you're quite well placed. So that's probably where you find me most times when I've got a bit of free time to just hang around.
Uh, Favorite restaurants then? Could you give me some of your neighborhood favorites?
Yeah, so I think first up, I really love La Lanterna, West End. I think there's Luca Conreno is the head chef in there, who actually we met at STV on the Live at Five days, and he's got such a passion for the food that he makes, and he's kind of created a really nice atmosphere. Him and Chris as well, who are sort of in charge of the restaurants, are brilliant. They're lovely, and also the food is just exceptional every time. So I'd really sort of shout about La Lanterna. I really love the Left Bank on Gibson Street as well. I think it's really understated. It's been there since I was at uni, so it's been there a long time. I think it might be changing actually soon, which makes me very sad. So it might not be there for too much longer, but it has been there for a long time. Another place where for me the food is amazing. The value is great for what you get, like compared to the prices everywhere these days, it's quite pricey. So that's a good one to go and get something really tasty that's not going to completely break the bank. And it's the kind of place that's always busy, but there's usually space for you. So you'll be able to kind of get in on a weekend or like, but it's never dead. There's always an atmosphere. So they're probably my two favourites when it comes to food around the West End.
Is there any restaurant that you've kind of like got long-standing memories of that you kind of associate with like going out with your family and stuff like that, or even just when you were coming in town when you were wee?
Do you know, not hugely. I don't think we didn't really go out to like dinner loads as a family. I do remember that we did quite a few like Christmas Eve dinners in Shawlands in Bellinapoli, which
Yeah,
is now Oro, I think.
yeah, that's right.
So that was kind of like a family celebration
Yeah,
restaurant, I
like a
suppose.
dinner.
That was somewhere I think quite highly of, and have nice fond memories of going in and like again the food, and it's quite a different feel, like up in almost like the top area of that restaurant where it's I suppose a bit more of a deli feel. It still feels quite restauranty, but a bit more casual. And then they've got the fancier restaurant downstairs as well, which I don't think I realised for the first few times because we always sat upstairs, and then we discovered that you could go down, and yeah, that probably has some of the best memories for me.
What about bars and pubs that you really associate with Glasgow that you think represents Glasgow hospitality?
Oh, it's tricky. I mean, again, sort of being a Glasgow uni student, a lot of the socials and stuff did happen around like Ashton Lane. So
Yeah.
there was like vodka wodka, and there was like I think is it oh my goodness, I'm actually blanking on the names, but the Grosvenor, even like the big
Yeah.
one up there, that was like a lot of space for like lots of uni students. So Ashton Lane is kind of a classic, but it does have studenty feels, but I would still go down there for a drink. Like we were in Braille for like leaving drinks from Hart like in the summer, and it was great. So I do think Ashton Lane's got a lot of character, which is nice. I also remember thinking I was well posh when I went into Princess Square and went up to what was November Cafe when I
October.
was younger.
You're
But
a
it's
month
now
out.
October.
October.
I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
it was
changed
November, and
months.
then it
Yeah,
became October. I'd
yeah.
forgotten about that.
So it used to be November, and I liked it
What a
when it was
strange
November.
thing to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
I
remember.
thought it was well posh. I'd have like a wee cocktail in there with a couple of my friends before we went out, and I was like, "Oh, look at us, we're so fancy!"
Yeah,
And then he had changed names, and it's been a whole host of different things. So, yeah, slightly more sort of chilled vibes, and the cocktails that were
yeah,
kind of something I enjoyed doing. I think like Mosquito as well. You go in there for some drinks, and God, yeah, it's amazing how many like different things you try and think of. They're all quite like a cocktail with my friends.
yeah,
But then we did quite a few sub crawls and stuff. So the kind of really classic like Glasgow pub where you go in and there are sort of locals and regulars and they're having a good time and they're just so friendly and generally people are very welcoming and they'll have a chat. We went out last year for Halloween with the netball team. So we play netball in the Kelvin Hall. And I went out with all the girls. Now I'm like the granny of the group. There's loads of young girls there having a great time. We all dressed up as Where's Wally? So there was like 20 of us going around Glasgow subway on as Where's Wally? And again, sort of the reaction we got on all the sort of sub crawl pubs at like Kinnan Park and Bridge Street was great. Everyone was so welcoming and up for a chat, and it was just the best. So that kind of classic pub is a sort of a bit of a Glasgow institution.
yeah. So you're not big into coffee, but if we were going for a cup of tea or a hot chocolate or an orange juice, where do you think we'd go?
Yeah, that is a good point. I almost feel like I'm missing out. I'd love to like coffee. My husband's a big coffee aficionado. He's a bit of a coffee loser. He loves it, absolutely loves it. So I actually have been around quite a lot of coffee shops, and I know there's a lot of very good ones in Glasgow as well. We take our coffee increasingly seriously, which is quite nice to do. But for a coffee, if I'm going West End, somewhere like Cothel's quite nice. I quite like Cothel for a
Yeah,
coffee. Or like if we're going for like a wee brunch and a sort of morning juice or whatever, Cottonwright Cafe as well. They've got that again on Great Western Road. So um, definitely skewed to the West End again here, but that's kind of to the place. There's also a place called Lagom on Great Western Road, which I've been in a few times and quite like in there as well.
yeah.
So
Good
there's
cakes as
the
well there, Jennifer. Good
I
cake.
may be drawn to
Yeah.
a good cake, okay? Yeah. You
So
save me Deli, of course, as well. They're pretty great. Their cakes are unreal. That you go there for a wee treat.
just going through this and thinking about the West End, and we've covered a lot of local hospitality, and I was just thinking that we are very lucky that there are so many places that only exist in Glasgow that we do actually have a distinctive. I mean, you spend a lot of time traveling around with work and stuff. You go into
Yeah.
other cities, and it's just identical high streets where it's different variations of all the big franchises and brands and stuff. We do have that, but there's still very, very strong independent hospitality scene. Is like, is that something that you value?
I think it's vital to have independent shops, cafes, business, because it's just such a celebration of like diversity and you're getting a bit of personality. And actually, for me, from my experience, the quality is usually better when people are really invested in it as well. So if it's your own personal family business or like you and your partner, you and your friends have come together, you want to give the best to like communities. And there's like the Hidden Lane in Finniston as well, like that's got some really nice local businesses, brewery in there. You've got the nice cafe, the Hidden Lane Tea Room. Like you've got lots of small independent businesses that are thriving, and I think that's something that we need to protect and support. And I think that's something that if you take an extra 10 seconds before you maybe go and buy your coffee from a big chain, is there somewhere smaller and that you can support, and that will make a bigger difference to them. Like I think the impact you have when you shop local and go to like independent businesses is huge.
So we mentioned Kelvin Grove Park, but is there any other outdoor spaces that you like, just if you're going for a walk or even just to kind of like reconnect with Glasgow if you'd been away working?
Yeah, I am a sucker for Pollock Park. I think it is the most magnificent space, and I'm going to say almost maybe even in the country. I just think it's magical because it is so central. Like you can get there, you think you're like, what, maybe 2 stops on a train from the city centre. If you want out to like Polishaw's West, you get in, you're pretty much in the park. You can drive from most places pretty quickly because it's just off the motorway, really, and you're within like a space that's just so calming. It's even when it's busy in the summer, I still feel like you've got space in Pollock Park, and that's kind of something that I really value. And you know what I mean? Like just looking at the trees just gives you that wee bit more zen. It's that again, verging on cliche, but I do think being out in that park and nature just gives you a wee bit of like a moment to just sort of decompress a wee bit. And also it's even more special to me as a park because there's Pollock House in there, and me and Jamie, my husband, we got married in there a couple of years ago, so it's got connections. And actually in the tennis and cricket club, which is now a cafe, but that's sort of at the other side of the park, I had like I think it was like my 21st birthday party in there because I had like a good, very close family friend was like the chairman of the cricket club. So you could hire that out and just have the space and a DJ and a bar. And so I've had like lots of fun moments in buildings in that park, but also if I want somewhere to just wander around and soak in a wee bit of nature, that's your place. It's brilliant.
What about any other notable Glasgow buildings or landmarks that you're very fond of if you're wandering around?
Yeah, I think I'm very aware that I am a bit West End skewed here, I'm afraid, but it's such an obvious one. But Glasgow University, I went to Glasgow Uni. I think that's one of my favourite views in the city. If you go up, not Glasgow, like not Uni Avenue, like you go the other side of the cloisters and you can look out and see Glasgow. I think it's kind of brilliant. And you see the art gallery and everything like that. So that's pretty special.
Yeah, I love that view where you can see the art gallery. It kind of appears out of the greenery
it's amazing.
of the park, and it's just this kind of beautiful pink confection of a place, you know.
It's incredible. I also genuinely love this, like, you know, the Squinty Bridge that goes across the Clyde just before STV. I think that's become a bit of a Glasgow landmark. And I love that we call it the Squinty Bridge because obviously it couldn't possibly have. I think it is is it the Clyde Arc?
I think so.
You'd struggle to know the real name, and that's the beauty of it.
I probably know that, but Squinty Bridge will do.
Squinty Bridge is all you need. That's it. I really like that. I think that's a great bit of architecture. And as a biased dweller of the tenement, I think Glasgow tenements are just really quite beautiful. I remember taking a picture a few years ago when it was snowing in Glasgow of just like the building across from me, and it reminded me so much. Remember that famous painting of like the tenement building? Yeah, and you see like just those wee windows and you see the lights in it and you see the snow, and I was like, it's just magical, like really, really beautiful buildings. So I think we're actually spoiled for architecture. I know Edinburgh gets a lot of credit as a city that's obviously the prettiest, but actually I think when you're in Glasgow, and it's the classic, isn't it? Look up and really appreciate some of the buildings that we've got: city centre, West End, East End. There's some real gems out there.
So when you weren't listening to Jennifer Lopez and Blue growing up, were there any Glasgow bands or musicians that made it onto the playlist?
I mean, there's so many great musicians. As in, Glasgow's such a musical city, and I would say I'm not cool enough to know all the great bands that are have all been Scottish and Glasgow formed. I think things like, for me, like, you know, like Franz Ferdinand, they were obviously a bit of a classic. I really like Churches as well. Laura Maybury's voice. Oh my God. She's amazing. I could listen to all day. She is just so talented. The song Chelsea Dagger as well. That was like that's just so good. Yeah, the Fratellis, absolutely banging. Like so many good tunes. So there's loads of good bands. I mean, even like well, I'm 36, so maybe a wee bit young for like people like Deacon Blue in their heyday and things, but you still grow up knowing that they're there and they exist. Totally. And
or you hear their songs on the night bus and you're coming home on the top.
100%. Like, what Dignity is there? Like, I mean, there's just so many big tunes. So no, Glasgow really knows its music, and I'm ashamed to say I'm not like an absolute aficionado on it, but I think even not being one of them, you can really appreciate the brilliant talent. I mean, things like, well, venues like the Barrel Lads and King Tut's and stuff. There's so many brilliant musicians that come through there. I've got a friend called Lucia full, and she's part of Lucia and the Best Boys, and they're still gigging and touring right now. So there's some really good bands happening at the moment, and it's very, very real. And I think there's something brilliant about that, and hopefully we can continue to kind of celebrate Glasgow music.
So just to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I was just thinking about, like the new program that you're going to be working on. Well, would you be interviewing people? Will you be doing packages, or what kind of stuff is coming up for you, Jennifer?
Yeah. So with the show Sunday Morning Live, I'm going to be working on that'll be studios down in London, but it's a team that kind of come from across the UK. There's some Northern Irish people in the team. There's some Scots. Obviously, I'm heading down there. There's some people from sort of all across England. So it's a nice team of sort of a melting pot of people that come together to make this show. And it's a series that's been running for a while. So I'm just sort of coming in to do 3 of these shows this series at the moment. There's a brilliant girl called Holly Hamilton that normally presents that with a guy called Sean Fletcher. They're a really nice team. She's on maternity leave at the moment, so they're getting some more presenters in to kind of cover and do a bit of work on that. So I'm really excited to be doing kind of BBC One daytime. And live, obviously, as we've talked about, is an extra wee buzz, and there's something great about it when you are interviewing people. So the show is a variety of kind of conversations, debates, and interviews. So I'll be live in the studio in London, going out across the UK, and we're talking to like authors, we're talking different sort of topical moments. So I think there was like Diwali a few weeks ago. They had people in to talk about how they celebrate that, and they had a sleep specialist in to talk about how we can try and get better sleep. So kind of that lifestyle, but there's usually a wee bit more discussion and debate, what's happening in the world and the news. So a bit like what you did for us sometimes on Live at 5 at STV, harking back to that again, Paul, but that kind of what's in the news, that kind of conversation, keeping it topical. So I'll be interviewing, and I actually do also film some of the pieces for them pre-recorded, in terms of I've been involved with the show over the last few years as a reporter, effectively doing some of the different bits and pieces out and about. I went and met people who were doing like fashion rental rather than for sort of sustainability reasons, and so there's a whole host. It's a real smorgasbord of topics that we'll be covering.
There you go. All right. Well, Jennifer, thank you very much for sharing your best of Glasgow. It's been really great talking to you. I'll speak to you.
It's been a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.